Welcome to today's episode, designed to give new players a closer look at the person behind the screen, your games master, or DM in D&D terms, copyright Hasbro. It can feel intimidating stepping into the world where somebody seems to hold all the cards. But here's the secret, your GM is just another player, putting in a lot of effort to make the game fun for everyone, including you. So we'll give you a glimpse into the time, creativity, thought that goes into their role, so you can feel at ease, knowing that they are on your side and want no more than for you to enjoy the game. Okay, so introducing the RPG Blokes. I'll start with Stephen. The most consistent GM amongst us, having maintained a table with one game or another for 6 years at our local society, and one day we'll release him back to his family.
Please don't.
I don't think they want him.
No.
John, if it has a pulse, then he'll DM to it. Although coupled with his declining eyesight, it's meant that he's often been caught DMing to his own reflection.
I wondered where you was going with that.
Random, but yeah, okay.
I could have been harsher, couldn't I? Yeah.
Needs work.
Right. Barry, if we ever think to monetize this podcast, Barry would be no good whatsoever, as he will never DM. Never, never, never.
I'm glad you finally accepted that fact for what it is.
Okay. Barry the Unpimpable is what I think I'll call him. But anyway, it's still great to have you here, Barry.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Right. Okay, so we're going to talk about the DM. We'll probably drift into calling him or her the DM. And I've got a little way of approaching this because there's three of us are very experienced DMs here, and one of us that's never before and is an experienced player. So it's quite good, I think, in the fact that we can get the perspective of Barry from a player's point of view, very pure, and we can give some insight into the way that we're thinking during the game and before the game too. So I'd like to start it by asking the two DMs, I'll chip in and two, and just give us a general idea of your style of DMing, or just to get a little bit about what your style of DMing is.
I class myself as quite a versatile DM. I could probably approach most styles based on what sort of players I would get in. I think maybe DMing over such a long time, you kind of do develop the different styles, and you've played all the different types of games, so you kind of incorporate the best bits.
So you've got your players at the table. They're looking at you. Would you like them to view you as another player, or as somebody that is an adversary?
I think
to
DM
them?
needs to be a DM. I mean, there are games that everyone's equal, but I don't think everyone's equal. I think the DM definitely runs the game. He calls the shots, and all the players need to respect his decision, like a referee in football. But and obviously there can be disagreements, but the DM has the final say. I mean, sometimes you can make a call based on the rules, which is a good fallback. I mean, nobody can argue with the rules, but sometimes people at the table think, well, that's not what we'd like to happen. I think if everyone, you've got the impression that they would like something to happen that was against the rules, then yeah, absolutely. I think the rule of cool, I think it's called, isn't it? And a lot of times.
Okay. John?
No, most of what Steve said is bang on. I do love the rule of cool. I'll let people get away with all sorts of stuff if it's fun and it works. But you've got to be prepared that for the dice letting you down, and crash and burn can still be fun. You don't just sort of rub someone's nose in it. You pick that up, you go along with it. Certain people sliding down curtains using daggers and stuff. That was cool as hell, but it doesn't always work. Yeah. But it was fun. We all remember it. So a failure is really good for the story sometimes.
Okay, so Barry, I just come to you now as the player. You haven't had the insight of being a DM, but you must have an idea of what makes a good DM and what doesn't, because you played with a variety of different DMs in different games. As a player, immediately, what would you find the qualities you would look for in a DM, and what would attract you to play at a table with a new DM? I'm not saying that you would be discriminatory in any sense that you would say, no, I'm not playing that, but there would be certain qualities that you would approve over others.
I've been lucky, and this comes up a lot. Our community's got a really rich resource of really experienced and varied styles of DMs, and I've yet to play with one that I didn't like. I've played with a couple that have ended up being quite unreliable, and that's a big red flag. The table just doesn't work if the DM isn't turning up, and I concede that, DMing is a lot of responsibility and it's a lot of work. Stephen said earlier on, like, the rule of cool. The rules as written are very important. It's an absolute baseline, but I absolutely love it when you come up with something that's it's imaginative, but it's also a little bit dodgy, and the DM just looks at you and goes, "Yeah, I'm going to let that happen. Let's see where that goes." That's one of the things I want someone to be versatile. And I know I've said in past podcasts that, I'm not a thespian D&D player. I don't do the voices and I don't do the acting. But I do like it when the DM does.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
A bit of effort in that
well,
respect.
and especially because the DM is playing a repertoire of characters, all of the NPCs. I think it's quite important that those voices and those characters are distinguishable.
Yeah.
And the guy that I'm playing with at the moment is very, very good at that. He
really brings them to life.
He really brings them to life, and it's a joy to watch. But yeah, I think the most important thing for me for a DM is that I want the DM to make the effort to make me feel welcome and to make the game as fun as they can. And as a player, I think it's really important that you help the DM as much as you can. It's like, if you've got, spells and skills, understand them.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Know what you're doing with your stuff. When you're in combat, and it's coming round to your turn, you should have already decided what you're doing by the time it gets, don't get me wrong, the person acting before you could end up changing that by doing something crazy, but, don't use the point when they go on and, now it's your turn, Barry. That's not the point where you start thinking about your action. We all have a responsibility to keep the game flowing and make that as easy as you can for the DM.
Okay, so I'll come to one of your points, actually, about voices. As a DM, it's about bringing each character individually to life to give them some sense of individuality. You can equally just show pictures of the people that you're playing, but I think it is very important to start to characterize and bring through the personality traits and try and give quite clear motivations to your PCs. Doing accents and things, and like I think John's mentioned in the previous podcast about, it's more intonation than accents can quite often be how you portray a character. So it's the way you talk rather than just any particular accent on your voice. John, do you find that the players engage with that quite well as a tactic while you're DMing? Is it something that goes through your mind?
Yeah, a fair bit. So again, no acting ability or anything like that. But you look at the picture, you read the bio of the NPC in question, same as you would a character. And you see what you get out of that. If it's a snooty lord, hey, snooty lord voice, or inflection, attitude. You can even do a particular body language for a character at the table, so that the players themselves can read you when you're portraying it. It can be a lot of work. Some people pick that up so much easier than others.
Do you rehearse this? Is there something you come into the session with it in mind, or do you find it happens naturally as you're DMing?
A little bit of both. I've occasionally had a slight accent creep in without my real knowledge of it, and I've caught myself doing it, and just go with it.
Anything you can bring on that level, it's worth its while, and it's something that you're always thinking about. So being a DM therefore has another facet to it. It's not just reading the scenario and telling people what's happening in result of their actions. It's far more complex than that, and those skills are part of the skill set of a good DM. Stephen, you've played Dungeons and Dragons, some of the larger campaigns, 18 months worth, plenty of different NPCs there, but they can be quite difficult sometimes, can't it, to differentiate between.
A lot of these NPCs will be written down if it's a pre-written scenario of their motivations. It's quite easy to bring across a different sort of NPCs for the different motivations that they have within the actual structure of the game.
Yeah, and it's worth every ounce of effort that you make on that respect. So, Barry, I quite like the way that this has developed, this conversation, in a way that you're pointing out things that you would look and appreciate in a DM and giving some insight from a DM's point of view of just what goes into that. So you can sort of see behind the curtain in some ways and see that it is all part of the game. These skills are there for the DM and they must exhibit them, but they come with a bit of effort and they can come spontaneously, but they're all important, and it makes a DM somewhat different to the player because they have so many other things to think about at the same time.
I mean, it's it is demonstrably a different role at the table. There's just no getting away from that. But if you take our current campaign and our previous campaign, actually, which you were running, I guarantee that you enjoyed that as much as the players did.
I think so.
Well, we could see it. And I think that's another one of those things that's really important. It's like most performances. If the person who is performing is enjoying themselves, then you are more likely to enjoy it. You need the DM needs to be enthusiastic and confident about what they're doing. One of the things that I would say as a player, make sure that you let your DM know that you're enjoying yourself and that you appreciate it, whether that's at the end of the session, whether it's during the session, or whether it's on Discord afterwards. Just, listen, great job last night. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. It goes a long, long way, because I'm conscious that these guys are putting in a lot more hours than me to provide me with this entertainment. Just be grateful. Be grateful. It's not... It's just good manners.
It's nice when people do say those things, and I do appreciate them. And I'm a DM because I want to be a DM. I prefer DMing to playing. I always have, and I don't. So the extra time that it takes to do it is inconsequential to me. I think it's the best way I enjoy playing the game. So you'll find that with DMs too. You don't owe them anything for their time because they're doing it because they want to, and that's
pizza.
And again, I disagree with that. I feel like I do. The thing that I owe the DMs for their time is to play the game in good faith, to be respectful, and to be grateful for the effort that they've put in. I think you do, as a minimum. I think that's what you owe them. I don't,
I think it's a benefit. That's something you get from DMing. That's a nice thing to receive because you're doing something you love and you're getting something out of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I think your game will be better as well if you encourage your DM in that way. You'll go around and think, oh, okay, well, great, I'll make it even better next time.
Well, no, and like especially if you're saying, this was a thing that I really, really enjoyed, this specific thing, and the DM will go, well, thinking, well, look, I'm going to throw a few little bit things that are comparable to that in the future. I also, I think this is probably a good point to make a distinction between pre-written campaigns and homebrew, because that's the graft, isn't it? When you've got someone running a game that they have written completely themselves, they're kind of putting their reputation on the line there.
It's a tough thing to do.
Yeah, it is a really tough thing to do. And I've played some amazing homebrew stuff that's just made me go away thinking, damn, that person's got an imagination. Like to have essentially written that story, and then it survived contact with a bunch of moronic players, who have gone off on the craziest tangents you can imagine. I
think it's more scary for them than it is for DMs that read out the book, because they can see everything they've planned and written kind of disintegrate in front of their eyes as soon as it hits players.
But I think it's also mightily impressive.
So I suppose this is a time where we can give you a little bit more of an insight into a DM and what they do and how they run an adventure. And I come to you first on this, Stephen. It's because although you're running quite often, and I do too, pre-written campaign scenarios, that's our preference, there is no way that these are running to the book, right? You can tell, really. I mean, this is a bit of an insight just to just how, if one person runs a game, it'll be different to if another ran it, right?
Yeah, especially in sandbox style games, I suppose you can do the planning and plotting, which is always good to do. I would always sit down and plan the game for sure. I know some people don't, but I find it easy to plan the game, plot the game as best I can, and then at the table, if things do run in a direction, you're in a much better position to then kind of fly by the seat of your pants, as it were. You're more likely to sort of like just make things up or try and...
But don't you fly by the seat of your pants in a pre-written campaign? Because I certainly do.
I try not to as much as I can, but obviously if it comes to it, then you're in a much better position to do that. So once you've done the groundwork, you can then ad lib freely because you've got a basis to ad lib on. So you know the groundwork, you know everything that's in that sandbox. So knowing the sandbox is the start. I mean, if you're sitting down at the table to try and make a sandbox up,
John, you are different in respect of the way that you DM. If the plot goes off in that direction, and you think that's a cooler way for the game to go,
you've got linear, you've got railroading, and you've got sandbox.
Okay,
and I like working within the framework of a pre-written scenario or campaign because that gives me more scope.
If something does get thrown off, your reaction is to go with the direction the ball's going, right? Rather than trying to say, stop play, bring the ball back here, and that started going in a metaphorical
that-
sense,
that-
because they're not that obvious, but you can do those things, right, as a DM. And
So I'm reffing Shadowrun at the moment, and there's a whole presidential campaign thing going on. And I know that certain people kind of have to survive because they're integral to the whole metaphor, unless I rewrite things. And I don't have the confidence to do that level of rewrite for future stuff.
on the fly or in advance.
Oh, no, it would be in advance.
It would be
But
in advance.
I really want to, because there's some of these NPCs that you want them to live.
Okay, but you allow the players to dictate the style of play and the direction of the gameplay more, but you're still running that within a fixed adventure. And I think that's the way I go with it. I think of an adventure as a beginning, middle, and end. If I can weave people through the middle and then get them to the end, I'm quite happy for anything to happen along that way, because I find that more interesting myself as a DM, because the story then unfolds in front of me. So I don't necessarily read so far ahead and study something that might happen 2 or 3 weeks in advance.
That's interesting.
So I suppose, Barry, from your perspective, so do you find that your disbelief or your ability to immerse yourself in the game is affected by the fact that the DM might be saying, well, no, this is the way things have to happen? There's an illusion being set there that you've got complete freedom of choice, but you know that the game is really just moving along in one direction. How does that work for you as a player? What do you prefer? And do these things affect your enjoyment of the game?
So, again, like I said at the beginning, I think I've been very lucky, because I don't think I've ever had a kind of dictatorial DM. I think I've always been fortunate enough to have a DM that's like, if the players are going in this direction, I'm gonna let the story go in that direction, and that might mean a lot of work for them, and they might need to circle you back at some point. But I think I've been really lucky that my DMs will let us go in the direction that we want to go. And it's
Sorry, but have you been?
I been
really lucky that that's what's happening? You may be being presented with an illusion of that happening. You might be making the choices that the DM wants you to make. Have you considered those things?
Listen, I am fairly confident I don't make the choices my DM wants me to make.
So you've got a fantastic DM then. If that's the feeling you're getting.
Yeah, I'm the stupid. Well, maybe, but I'm the let's do the stupid thing guy.
Yeah.
And I've seen the occasional DM roll their eyes when I've said I'm going to do something. But yeah, it's, again, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid of failure. I mean, this is one of the things that I think we need to keep coming back to, that it is a game of storytelling. The narrative is the most important thing, and for me, failure drives the narrative often more than success. Some of the absolute best sessions that I've had have followed a monumental fuck up. And I think that's one of the times when you notice how good your DM is at their craft, when they've managed to make you really enjoy fucking up. You thought it was an absolute disaster, but it's led to 2 or 3 sessions of absolute brilliance.
I think, obviously you let your players get from point A to point B, or point C, shall we say, without going through point B. Sometimes that can be difficult if people reach the end of the scenario and not have a clue exactly how they got there. So it's a matter of weaving, if they do go in a different direction, to give them the similar sort of information that they would have got at point B. So we say point B and a half, that you would get in there.
Yeah, that's a really good insight into how it works.
Well, you have to, otherwise people end up at the end of the scenario thinking, what?
Can I just come in on that as well? Because I am the guy that even if you give me the piece of information at point B, by the time we get to point D, there is every chance that piece of information has been lost. And I also think a really good DM will make allowances for the fact
that... I'm happy just that I gave it to you in the first place.
Yeah. I play a lot of Stephen's games, and I think you are actually the master of recapping a session for people and giving information at key points without looking like you're feeding them, just to remind them. And you're good at that. You know. I
think it's important, especially if we're doing a story-based game, that people understand what the story is. Because there's nothing worse than I look at people thinking, you ain't got a clue what the story's about, do you? It's kind of like they just look at everything and I ain't got a clue.
So you may as well remind them.
Yeah, because I think story-based games, I personally, when I play them, I like the feeling that I'm in them and I know what's going on and I have control. Because if you don't know what's going on, you have no control over it anyway, do you? So if you haven't got a clue what you're doing, then you're just going to go along with it.
So the benefit of your game.
Yeah.
So I agree, and I think it's a really important thing for DM to do. You got to remember, some of these campaigns have been going on for 18 months, 2 years. If you're expecting a dullard like me to remember something that happened like more than 3 or 4 weeks ago, then yeah. So I love a recap, and I love it, like you say, when a DM just kind of gently lets you know you do actually have a piece of information that's relevant here. and I can see that you haven't remembered it. So just have a little...
From a DM's perspective, that is really awkward, actually, to have to do that. I don't like it. You don't like it.
But sometimes it's vital. They're giving him the item and he's just carrying it around. He just hasn't realised it.
And John, I've seen you let people sink and not come back to the surface under situations like that. You are ruthless. Go, be honest.
I can be, yeah. But yeah, when things are really absolutely tits up, it's the temptation is to just nuke it from orbit, start again.
Check out RPG Blokes Plus. It's our premium service where we give you the opportunity to help pay our bills. And we guarantee you an episode every week, exclusive live plays and interviews. And that's got to be worth £3 of anyone's money.
RPG Blokes Plus. Regular episodes for a regular you.
Or have an NPC on standby, it doesn't matter what it is, that just can say something and put some information back into the discussion.
But that's the distinction between the sandbox, linear and railroad. You don't want to railroad. Sometimes you'll have to with certain groups or certain players, individuals. But linear, the amount of times a plot has been completely bypassed. They've done exactly the right thing, but with the application of, a mind-reading spell or some stuff like that. And they've just to the end. And hang on, I've still got like half the campaign book here. And you've just...
I was going to say, there's a lot of pre-written scenarios actually put in NPCs with a direct responsibility to direct the PCs. A lot of them do, especially in more sandboxy games. You'll meet a PC that will give you a quest or will give you a direction to go in. So it's not, unless you say, no, I don't want to do that quest, but there'll be someone else coming up with a quest that you'll end up doing. So
it's a form of railroading.
It is, but I mean, it comes down to it. Scenarios they have their boundaries, and
stories have beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And, if you're playing a campaign, there does need to be some sense that it's moving forward.
You're buying into that, right? There's a player.
Yeah, absolutely. You're buying into it as a player. And, it is. And again, I have nothing but respect for DMs. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of work. It looks, sometimes, I think you guys, it's like herding cats, especially if you've got a table with 6 or 7 players on it. Keeping track of all of those agendas, all of those backstories, whilst moving, the narrative forward, I think is a craft that it's a joy to behold when it's done well. But if it's not done well, it can spoil everyone's enjoyment.
It's very enjoyable to do it. It's more fun to me than playing.
Look, it looks horrendous to me.
The unwritten rule of everyone sticking together. I know they do occasionally split the party, but can you imagine running a game where everyone's doing their own thing? I mean, in real life, that might well be the thing, but if that's impossible as a DM, people do it, and it falls apart very quickly if everybody says, I just want to do my own thing. And it becomes a chaotic mess.
This is the thing, isn't it? Like there's splitting the party, and then there's everyone doing their own thing. And I know the golden rule is people say, "Oh, don't split the party," but sometimes you've got to split the party. One group of people are going to solve problem A, and another group of people are going to solve problem B. And I think for a good DM, that's manageable.
Absolutely, yes, it happens a lot. Yeah.
Once you get into like 3-4 groups, I'm like, well, it's going to be an hour before it's my go again.
And even in individual groups, it becomes chaos, and it just they think, "Wow, how do I get everyone back together again?" Because it's necessary, and then you have to force people back together.
I would say you've got 2 ways of doing that. I mean, it's all about pacing. With one, if they're splitting off, that's fine. The other players could take over an NPC that's going along, depending on the situation. Or if it's say in Shadowrun. You can have one person decking, like hacking, another person running off looking for the guards, another person doing something else. They're all doing different things, maybe different parts of the building.
They're working towards the same goal. Whereas I'm talking about working different goals as well. And you've got 8 players and they all want to open up a different room or go into different areas of it. It just becomes a complete nightmare.
So I just want to go back over the beginning, middle and end. And the end is not predetermined. I think when you read a scenario, it often feels like it is, and there is a success story, and it comes to a wonderful conclusion. But I don't think there are many DMs that look at a scenario and think, that's the way it has to end. Things can go tits up here. And They rarely do, I must say, because the players always rise to the occasion. But if you don't give that impression, like you're talking about failure, you wouldn't want to particularly be aware that this is going to end successfully regardless of your actions, would you, Barry? I think it's something that's important.
I want it to end narratively. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not, like I say, it's not about success. I mean, I do kind of feel like if there is like an overriding purpose that your quest is for, then the end is either you failing that quest or succeeding in that quest. So I do think it can be binary like that. But all of the side quests and the little things that drive the narrative on the way there, you get players who are hunting for glory. They want to succeed at absolutely everything. And actually that makes for quite a boring story. You know, no one would watch a film where everything went great for the hero, where the hero just sort of walked along, rolled natural 20s all day long, killed everyone along the way, got the girl at the end, sat on the throne. Hey, that's the most boring story in the world. You know, the trials and the adversity that your characters go through to get to that end bit, I think, are what are more important than the actual end bit. You know, it's like the end bit is just there so that your character can go through those trials and adversities.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving on to another part of this then, I've got a couple of other pertinent points that I'd like to just cover with you, is that you see a new player. I'll go from a DM's point of view initially. No, I won't. I'll go from Barry's point of view. As a new player, if you're feeling awkward, what would you want your DM to do?
To kind of not draw attention to it, I guess. I mean, I can speak about this fairly eloquently because it's exactly how I felt when I started playing. And I did try and throw myself into it, and I did try and, I was concerned about not fully understanding the rules, but very quickly it became apparent that I didn't need to understand the rules because other people at the table did, and they would help me. So then I panicked about like speaking out and playing my character, and that was really difficult. I felt very self-conscious. I'm a blusher. I do go red from the neck up when I'm not entirely comfortable. It also happens when I have a pint, so don't get confused. I just think the most important thing that a DM can do, right? There's a confidence and there's the welcoming. Like if you know the DM's like wants you at the table and is encouraging you and stuff like that, that's brilliant. But also I like it when the DM, like, I know there's a lot of rules and I don't think it's possible for everyone to be expert in all of them. But when you've got a DM who's opening the rule book every 30 seconds, right, and obviously if you're a new DM and you're finding your way, then, get a table of people who are going to be accepting of that and supportive of that, and that's fine. But one of the things I really enjoy is when the DM just knows their shit. I think that just makes, again, it's about the flow of the game and the flow of the story. It just makes it so much more sort of believable if there's not a rule check every 30 seconds.
That one hurts because that's probably my style of DM, and I'm bad with rules.
That's not my experience of you DMing me. I'm not. And again, listen.
You know why? It's because I had very competent players that knew the rules and were quick on it and were very kind and helpful.
That is actually true. I was the only numpty at that table. Fair dues, fair.
Yeah, but it worked anyway.
But I'm not saying that. Like, I'm not saying the DM should never ever look something up. That's blatantly ridiculous. But when your common garden stuff that's happening like frequently, it's really good when your DM just knows it. And again, I go back to what I said earlier. Like, as a player, not as a new player, but once you're a more experienced player. Like, know your character, know your stuff, know your rules, keep track of your own conditions and stuff like that.
The DM is not going to do these things for you. Yeah. There's too much for him to think about, and also that's kind of playing your part. You're making decisions for you or pointing out skills at particular moments. It's definitely not going to come for you, DM, no matter how kind they are and how understanding they are that you're a new player. That will never be their role. They're not going to be that person for you. So even if you saw an awkward player at the table, how do you go about bringing them in? Like a new player, and say just awkward, but somebody that's new to your table?
Yeah, I suppose as Barry says, it's the acting out your character. I'm thinking is probably the most awkward scenario that they can find themselves in, and I kind of realise that. So any new player's first interaction should be a few dice rolls, because everyone should be kind of confident about rolling some dice, and that's what you've come here for. So give them a test to see something, make a perception test, and
get them involved. Yeah. And John, sorry, Barry, go on.
Can I just say, I think that what Stephen said there is really important. And as a new player, like the first few times that you make your own decision rather than just going with the flow of what the more experienced probably players at the table are doing. That felt like a pivotal moment for me when I was like, they were saying, well, we're going to do X, Y, Z. And I was like, well, I'm going to do A. I was like, oh, I do have autonomy. And it just takes you a little while to get the confidence to speak up. And then it's all of that. And that's when you start to think, oh, well, I'm playing my character now. And from a confidence point of view, that was huge for me. You know, that was one of the points where I thought, oh, I'm beginning to quite enjoy the role-playing side of it.
Yeah. And then if you were playing one of Stephen's games, you'd have the opportunity to do that probably a lot sooner than in other types of games that you play where, you know, you can drift along with a narrative. And Stephen's going to call you out and give you that opportunity early on.
Yeah, I'll just say when I started playing, because I remember my first game I ever played, I think I played someone else's character who wasn't there, and I think I was watching and awkward. And the first thing I think someone got me to do is heal them. And so they just asked me to roll a dice for healing, and then I rolled a dice, and everyone sort of like congratulated me on the dice, and I thought, wow, this is great. I healed someone, I did something good.
Yeah.
And then I was in from that point onwards. It's just something simple as that.
I think that says everything about the difference between us, and because mine was like the first time I killed a guy. Yeah.
Afterwards I killed people.
Yeah, plenty of them.
In character.
Yeah, in character, yeah. Police don't know about the other ones.
And welcome to the Confessions podcast.
John, your insight on a new player, is there any little techniques, any tips that you would have?
Well, again, I'm a huge fan of the session 0. If I can do that's my preferred thing. But if you've got someone that's turned up to the club and never gamed or never tried that system, integrate as you go, so you don't slow down the gameplay for everyone. Encourage people to just give a bit of advice, like we said, not telling what to do, just saying, well, you could do this, you could try that. It's up to you.
Boil it down to a few different options.
Yeah. So integration fairly early, but you don't want them just sitting back and just listening to what everyone else does. I mean, you do, but not just that, because otherwise they'll step back and that will be pretty much it. They won't feel included. Yeah. But ideally, whole session 0 is, for me, the best, because it helps the player, the ref, and the characters sort of bond, get an idea what's going on, expand on the backstory.
And it brings them in sort of, they hit the ground running then on their first session. It's a far easier thing for them to sort of
They've got an idea about themselves, like their characters and everything.
Yeah, session 0s are far more common now. When we started playing, they weren't really there at all. You'd bring your own character along and just start the game. But
I definitely rolled all those 18s naturally.
That's what used to happen. It still happens occasionally, but yeah.
It does, yeah.
Didn't someone have their character sheet ripped up the other day? It's not a pleasant thing to do.
The other day, was it? Years ago, we had a friend that come in with all 18s in his stats, and the DM just took it and ripped it up.
Yeah,
wasn't me.
This is one of the things I don't get when people. That's what I was saying about. One of the things I don't like is players who are glory hunters. It's like, go and play video games, go and play. It's. Yeah. I want my character to be flawed. I want my character to have weaknesses. Those are the things that make playing that character interesting. Now, don't get me wrong, your strengths are great as well. But it is, when the DM says make an intelligence check and your first thought is, oh, shit, that's fun.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's it.
Shit, I'm in max.
Well, no, but then when you succeed in those unlikely, you have like your character has like an amazing in character epiphany where they've rolled massively high on a really low stat. That's more fun than getting Eldritch Blast off every time because you've got stupidly high charisma. That kind of means more.
So the final thing I want to quickly touch on here is the us versus them kind of dynamic, which, let's be honest, there are DMs that are like that it is the DM versus the players. They aren't the most enjoyable DMs to play with. It's not, even old school DMs really didn't used to all be like that, more common. Let's just put that to rest, Stephen. From your perspective, and I'll come to you next, John, too, and this is an ego thing, right? The DM, in my opinion, shouldn't be bringing his ego to the table. He should be portraying the ego of these characters. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a thin line to tread, I think, with that. You've got to come across of not totally being biased towards the players because they might think you're making it easy for them. But you should certainly not bend the rules so the players lose, which I have played some games that has happened, and then when you start winning, the rules are bent or things have changed, and
It's okay if the players don't know what you're doing, but
yeah, it is a thin line to tread. I think it's important to not be too pro party because there is failure that can happen.
do you ever fall into the trap of us
No,
them versus you?
I can't stand it as a player. I hate it. I hate it when I think that I'm against the DM and the DM's against me. I don't like it.
Or
So
from a
I
DM's
would never
point of
do
view?
that as a DM
No.
because I don't like playing it as a player.
If the player is in this mindset that he is, and I've had players like this, and I've had them, and they normally min-max, and they normally glorify on how quickly they've defeated the main opponents, and it's all about them and their character, and they become quite high maintenance players if there's only just one of them at the table. These people are very difficult to kind of break down and to integrate in a less kind of confrontational way. How would you deal with a player like that?
They have an example of that in Werewolf. You've got the guy that the alpha. I know it's all been disproved, but in that you've got the guy that the foremost, the top dog, the one that gets all the items because he's the greatest in station. Oh, obviously you don't need us to defeat that critter. Off you go. We're not worthy of the, and that's it. They'll die.
Well, you withdraw the NPCs, but you can't withdraw the other.
That's
player
the
characters.
players. The other
said it.
characters saying, "Well, look, we're not allowed to do the thing. We're not allowed to use any of the items. You want to hog all the glory? Go ahead. We'll wait. We're not worthy. You've told us this. Let them go on with it. I've had it in D&D, half ogre, fighter type, berserk, I think, old edition, and it was charging. He was almost invulnerable. He decimated everything. We were trying to rest up. We was trying to heal. We was trying to do things. He went charging off. He died stupidly. It was before Leroy Jenkins, but it was that.
Okay.
He was doing that. We went into support because we was trying to beat a team. Too little, too late.
I have a feeling we're going to come back to this on a future podcast, problem types of player. But I want to finish this podcast off by just giving Barry a say on, we're trying to give an insight here on how the DM thinks and maybe help new players sort of understand what that dynamic is between the two sides of the game. What would be your advice to a new player?
I mean, my advice to a new player would be, make sure you're going there to enjoy yourself, but be mindful that it's not at the expense of other people's enjoyment, including the DM. You are part of a team, and the DM, although they play friendly NPCs as well as they play your adversaries. The thing about player versus DM, like when we go into combat, I want it to be player versus DM. I actually want the DM to want to win those combat situations. Now, they don't have to kill you. They can MacGuffin it and stuff like that. But when they're playing the NPCs that you're in combat with, I want them playing those to the best of their ability.
So being neutral and playing things fair and square.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, DMs are, rumour has it, DMs are also human.
Lies.
Whether you're a player or a DM, when you pick up a dice, you want to fucking roll it well. That is just, I think it's innate in all of us, and I've seen the mixed emotions from a DM when they've rolled a natural 20, because their first thought is, yay! And then they think, oh, it's really bad for that guy.
Game over.
But like I say, I want the DM to make it challenging, so there will be times that it feels like it's you versus the DM, and I think that's right and proper.
So there's a lot of respect that has to go two ways here. The DM is another player. He doesn't want to be ostracized and made to feel that, he's against everybody at the table and he's not part of the wider game and the enjoyment that everybody's having. So that's his job as much as the player's job to make sure that happens. Yeah, it's what's that?
Their job.
Their job.
Yeah, for the last 5 minutes you've referred to the DM exclusively as he. Other genders are available.
Well, they are, of course, yeah. But, I wouldn't like to read a book where I'm completely and utterly obsessed by gender, and this podcast won't be either. But we move on then. So we're at the end of the podcast now, so I think we've covered everything we need to. Hopefully that will give you a better insight into the role of the DM, and so you can understand how it works a little bit more, and you can understand the thought processes and maybe relax and know that you're in good hands, that the objective is to make sure you have an enjoyable game, given as much autonomy as you can be given to make those decisions and create the experience and shape the game and the world that you're in. Stephen, do you want to see us out, please?
Oh yes, yeah. So let's
Slice and dice.